Welcome. Today's post is 1955 World Records Book 5:5. Published on August 6, 2023. The bigger the event, the stronger the message sent with it. This is why, by their very nature, world records are often going to define comms sent in any given year. Comms I can follow like a breadcrumb trail to solve the many mysterious things in the world. Here are the topics we'll be decoding today. You can always find this list in the description below. If you enjoy this video, please press the like button and subscribe for weekly full-length blog posts and shorter, more shareable videos. Let's begin. Note, you can also read this post on Twitter. The bigger the event, the stronger the message sent with it. This is why, by their very nature, world records are often going to define comms sent in any given year. Comms I can follow like a breadcrumb trail to solve the many mysterious things in the world. 1955, Records of the Tallest Mountain. The book, now synonymous with record keeping, was originally published in 1955 in the UK. I was originally going to decode various facts I dug out of it, but it turns out the book itself can be decoded. First the book, then records. Note the preface. 1955 February. Russia announces it found a new mountain higher than any in America, UK, Africa. Ever hear of this? I not only hadn't heard of it, but I couldn't verify it after I learned it. I have rarely been so confounded by a data point. I spent hours, with newspaper archives going literally day by day, but despite how big of news something like this should have been, not a single US reporting agency appears to have picked up on it. Nothing. And then I took a step back and looked at the whole book. Notice the pages just before preface. Mount Everest, highest mountain. I've decoded Mount Everest before. June 2, 1953. Mount Everest conquered by British man named Hillary announced to world. June 2, 1953. Coronation of Queen Elizabeth, longest BBC broadcast in history. The symbol is of a new top of the world. Now reconcile this with that preface. 1955, Russia announces new mountain taller than any in the USA, UK, and Africa. 1955 Warsaw Pact, Soviet alliance to compete with NATO alliance. A new world top. But the book doesn't say it's tallest, it states the just conquered by UK is tallest. UK book acts as a counterpoint. Which means a possible reason I couldn't find reporting on that mystery mountain is because a point may have been made about information control. From that perspective, this book of records/feats is a testament to who was actually in control of the world. Markers of power in control over media. May 19, 2012. Most people on Mount Everest in a single day. May 19, 2012. First woman to climb Mount Everest twice in one season. May 19, 2012. Mark Zuckerberg marries Priscilla Chan. Facebook was the biggest social media site in 2012. The climb. May 17, 1953. Historic Mount Everest climb, first camp. May 17, 1953. Greatest distance frog jump record. Hillary was about to jump the greatest distance ever after all. These comms are often nothing more than ways to talk about important events in novel ways. 2 years after the Everest ascent, the Soviet alliance does their own version. Origins of the tech space race. April 16, 1955. Russian Commission Moscow announced Space Lab Sputnik origin. April 16, 1955. Russia, Alexei Pajitnov born Tetris creator. Pajitnov born same day as origin of Soviet tech/Sputnik space race commission, helps explain why he was used to represent the fall. Another symbol established. Funding. It is clear what Soviet side was doing 1955, but what about the West? August 4, 1955. President Eisenhower authorizes $46 million for CIA HQ. August 4, 1955. Record greatest blood infusion 6 gallons by McLeod. Symbol of mass recruitment. This global expansion was at the forefront then. June 2, 1953, Queen Elizabeth coronation. June 2, 1953, Mount Everest conquered by British. June 3, 1953, first Canada Golf Cup won by Argentina. Golf equals gold comms of funding. Argentina wins, symbol of funding ops in South America. This is what happened when we look into CIA ops at the time. Where did many of the paperclip Nazis go after World War II after all? Golf, green jacket. April 10, 1949, Masters Tournament first green jacket awarded in Augusta, Rome Empire symbol. April 11, 1949, Rich Crow arrested biggest, inside job of all time. National City Bank, New York. Crow raised $267 million treasury bonds. Money move refinements. Introducing green jacket to let waiters know who got the check at dinner. 4. Comms and golf. September 12, 1869, Morris born inventor of teddy bear at 404, Tompkins Avenue. Plus 4. September 16, 1869, Morris, first hole-in-one ever scored. Morris/Morris 4-4. Teddy bear ops. How control of those funded is ensured. Want money? This is the path. 4. More. Did you know Warner Brothers Pictures began with a movie? Four brothers making a movie called My 4 Years in Germany? My 4 Years in Germany, James W. Gerard. Treasurer of DNC. A position held by the uncle of Teddy Roosevelt and the early Fed. More. 4. April 4, 1923, Warner Brothers Pictures founded. April 5, 1923, Firestone balloon tire production begins. Notice their first film series is Gold Diggers 1923, just before Looney Tunes. Balloon symbol equals the market pump. Warner begins with 4 multiple times. Gold Diggers equals 4 aspiring actresses get attached to rich men. May 27, 1933, Gold Diggers reboot Warner Brothers McMahon. Ed McMahon/Vince dollar symbol. May 25, 1933, Three Little Pigs, second animated film to win Oscar. Building Strong House. Still considered the most successful animated short ever made. Given the overlap with Warner Brothers brand building, it seems to me a potential symbol for forces building a house of sorts. Microsoft also began April 4. Bill Gates' family comes from Federal Reserve Seattle branch from his mother, Maxwell, side. Funding comms. Why Gates, though? I recently came across a possible answer for this. What was Gates around the time of Microsoft? Landmark case of Gates versus Collier. February 8, 1971, Gates versus Collier. February 8, 1971, NASDAQ electronic stock market. Gates tied to electronic money. So why this case? Read the case. Upgrade of living conditions. Abolishing all forms of corporal punishment. Many types of ops before were rooted into military control, and so it shifts to civilian for a variety of reasons. Identifying their old job as though they were a tormented prisoner. This is just a hypothesis for now, but this case was a big deal just before Gates manifested in pop culture. Gates was long at the core of the tech world, and such a position is typically a face for bigger. Japan/Seattle connection. November 15, 1971, Intel releases the world's first microprocessor, the Intel 4004 Japanese partnership. November 14, 1971, NASA Mariner arrives at Mars orbit, becoming the first spacecraft to orbit another planet. 4/4 Mariner/Mariners. Tech history. Funding. How does Japan coordinate? Same way as West with sports. What is their biggest sport? 4. December 11, 1949, Japanese ship the heaviest grain record in Antarctic. Plus 4. December 15, 1979, Japanese Central Baseball League founded. March 17, 1908. Burns wins, shortest world heavyweight fight beating Gem Rock 1 minute and 30 seconds. March 17, 1908. Fire Guantanamo Bay storeship destroys USS Monongahela. Burns/Fire wins. Quickly decided. Having the comms market makes associated parties understand it was intended. I got a question about my take on Bill Gates as to whether I was suggesting Bill Gates was indicative of military ops. No, I was suggesting he represented global financing due to his Fed/charity ties. As for the military part, I was suggesting there were military-connected ops funding tech development. E.g. decode of Pong and how the Nixon admin, ping-pong diplomacy, was tied to hyping the country up for Pong. International co-op, ushering tech mainstream. Clearly there were disagreements around this time as both Nixon and Mao went from record-breaking popularity to both sides having coups remove them from power. I believe that this power change opened up formerly military run-ups to civilian control. I believe the former system involved military financing of private companies/colleges and demanded a strict adherence to rules. I think Bill Gates may have been the face chosen to pick off unhappy prisoners to that system. The prior system became the target of the money backers behind Gates. It all came to a head 1977 with both Gates/Jobs. The symbolism of less restrictions and more potential money with less penalties. An underground network allowed by the Pronto Internet. Jobs in particular invoking 666 symbolism for the first Apple in 1966. A direct swipe at the then big news story of Frank Church's investigation into illegal behavior in government-connected ops. The exact thing they moved away from. His name, Church, also gives a clue. The church networks being a backbone of community organizing since the beginning. It stands to reason a coordination between church and state was a core part of ops for the entire history of the country. Whether it's being used positively or negatively is another matter. We can see a clear transition of control post-Nixon. Global money/Fed tide steps in and takes over the infant tech market. Whatever command structure existed was forced to accept an underground alternative with little to no oversight. MK Ultra reborn. The cult associations are intertwined. September 26, 1872. Most children birthed at once accepted by history record Guinness. September 26, 1872. Shriners established. New subset of Mason given a symbol of multitudes as it came to be. Notice also the not accepted birth records. Both not accepted famous births are for women giving birth to dozens of children at one time. Both cases named Countess Margaret. This may give us a root symbol for Simpsons. Already decoded as then new computer surveillance ops. Anonymity symbolism with Lisa. And of course Brady being the most prominent of all of them in modern comms. Brady material equals evidence kept secret. Which is likely why the choice to name the state secret designated Invisible Man became Brady. Also Lisa. The symbol being anonymous and taking on missions with expectation of payment at your own risk. IMF, Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible, show name equals IMF. IMF equals International Monetary Fund. In fact, the most recent movie even makes a point of comparing the two. I'll decode that series fully in the near future, but I'll give my early take now. The first movie begins with the search for a secret name. September 31, 1954. Mission Impossible identity date key scene start of film. August 30, 1954. Atomic Energy Act of 1954 allow private companies to gain technical information, restricted data, about nuclear energy production. Symbol of surveillance and trying to find out who is acting on behalf of foreign interests. After Ethan Hunt gets burned and framed, he regroups by using religious texts to communicate with funders. Origin of Mission Impossible was of the spy craze that began with this show. September 22, 1964. The Vulcan Affair pilot man from UNCLE. September 21, 1964. Malta becomes independent from the UK. Knights of Malta equals Catholic Church wealthy cells. Going independent from state date. In fact, we can further see this by the fact that a sister series to Man from UNCLE began the same time as Mission Impossible. September 17, 1966. Mission Impossible debut Lucy Productions. September 16, 1966. The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. debut spin-off of Man from U.N.C.L.E. Meaning both CBS and NBC were putting out markers for the new ops post-independence. September 15, 1964. Man from UNCLE Vulcan Affair pilot. September 15, 1965. I Spy, Bill Cosby Tennis Spy. September 8, 1966. Star Trek pilot, Vulcan. UNCLE equals UN equals United Nations funded. Markers with emphasis on risk being taken by undertakers not on backers. The famous Mission Impossible brief at the start informs the parties involved the backers will disavow as necessary. That Vulcan/Vulcan find is pretty big actually, as it clarifies the precise nature of Star Trek ops. That they are an offshoot of spy ops with cooperation across the board. Also, there was a 1988 reboot of Mission Impossible. September 28, 1987. Star Trek TNG pilot first, Q episode. October 23, 1988. Mission Impossible reboot Assassin Q, Star Trek, kills protege and replacement as IMF team leader comes out of retirement. October 23, 1988. Super Mario Bros. 3 famous launch. In Super Mario Bros. 3, Mario wears a Tanuki suit to fly. Tanuki equals mythical flight by giant testicles. The symbolism of which? Rather than speculate on that, I'll decode what is crystal clear here. October 23, 1988. Super Mario Bros. 3. October 23, 1988. Kamen Rider Black RX. +4. October 27, 1988. E.T. Extraterrestrial famous release 6 years after breaking box office. Symbol of big dollar incoming for Nintendo. Kamen Rider equals symbol of new tech push as I go into here. Especially meaningful connection given Nintendo launched alongside E.T. with a clear physical representation of him. Complete with neck that stretches into giraffe proportions. In fact, those Tanuki statues are famous for being put in front of storefronts, so it may well be symbol of money coming in. Even so, there's clearly ops behind all of this. The company chosen to win market share achieves this usually through agreement of funding ops. ET equals Morse code equals coded communication. A throwback to the early days of communication. Which simply means comms for covert agents. More comms tied to this. But let's get back to the record decodes. March 7, 1876. Bell patent for phone. March 10, 1876. Bell first phone call. March 17, 1876. Earliest jump Guinness record at Marston 6 feet. 17/Q marker as it wasn't public yet. 1876 June, phone shown in public. Reconcile Mario's jump plus Mario pipe travels, internet/phone. And of course Mario, brick breaking, in relation to the Soviet wall. Speaking of which, let's return to 1955. Russia and Warsaw beginning. What happened just before that? Something once again tied to Marston. July 24, 1954. First USA Miss Universe, born Independence Day. July 22, 1954. Virgin Islands U.S. territory. July 22, 1954. Highest score archery Guinness Book. Cupid. Virgin Islands equals future Epstein Island. December 1, 1953. Hugh Marston Hefner, first Playboy issue with Marilyn Monroe. Cupid symbolism tied to Felix Venus. At the Vatican. Famous early Nintendo game as well. January 14, 1954. Marilyn Monroe marries Joe DiMaggio honeymoon in Japan. January 14, 1954. Record largest fish ever taken underwater called JEW fish. Joe DiMaggio famously tied to the mafia. Given the Playboy connection, seems to suggest the blackmail ops were running through the mafia. I'm sure you noticed the record Jew fish catch same day. It's clear Mossad is tied to blackmail based on many posts, but I'm not always sure how to apply it. February 27, 1902. Bank Leumi founded largest in Israel. February 27, 1902. Highest dollar award tied to cheating spouse Sioux Falls. I began by discussing this mysterious 1955 mountain announcement from Russia in Guinness Book of Records. I spent hours looking for the news they talk about and came up empty. It was perplexing to me, but a reader came through and found it. I had been searching in the US news, but they found a mountain in 1955 Russian news that might be the right one. Still couldn't find the press release itself talking about the record-breaking height, but instead it's about a tragedy. Now that I knew the name of the mountain, I was able to find references in US news. Still no mention of the record-breaking height Guinness focuses on. Just the tragedy. The measurement is in 1943, and so it makes no sense for the announcement of the findings to be 1955. The findings are inconclusive, so I'll stick with my original take. The tragedy may well have been an unexpected failure in trying to set up Warsaw. We can't know for sure how big it was supposed to be, only how big it ended up. Comms are built on plausible deniability. I can't know the answer to a number of these comms, but you can often tell something doesn't look right. Smallest man 1955 February, 17 pounds. Thinnest man 1754, 1417 pounds max in 17-year life. Given comm's elusive nature, it may seem little good comes from ascertaining symbols. Depends on the symbol. Some finds radically recontextualize what major things in our society are. What is real, what is fake? What was real, what was fake? Link above shows lies of science masquerading as actual science so as to send messaging about the market control and profit. E.g. Babe Ruth first big sports merch coinciding with the muon particle find. Or, God particle defines weight, symbol of Google waiting. I'm always finding more. Here's a brand new one I found this week. November 24, 1959. First proton synchrotron begins ongoing. November 25, 1959. First bilateral investment treaty ongoing. Synchronization as in investor in one country syncing to another. Bilateral investment. ANW, Google Eyes. Upon reading that particle post, a reader found another. June 1919. Discovery of proton first time shown off. June 1919. First successful food franchising operation. I bring it up because when I dug into Guinness I found the record and then the media comm for it. June 20, 1919. ANW first successful food franchising operation. June 17, 1919. Barney Google Eyes Brown Horse. June 14, 15/1919 earliest transatlantic flight by ANW Brown. Same initials, ANW, Brown for record flight, horse is also a match. Google Eyes equals symbol of looking. I came close to not including that record. I hadn't noticed initials until seconds before posting it. Dig and it'll become more clear one way or the other. In this case it clearly is. A plus W initials. And the W stands for whiten and the very last name is brown as in what the soda does when opened. Whitening the brown soda. In fact, it's even illustrated on the can decal. Keep in mind back then the carbonation and foam would have been more novel than today. But the real find is Barney Google symbolism. The color scheme fit precisely, the name. Spark plug makes perfect sense in relation to what soda was to an unfamiliar world. And moreover the symbol of Google Eyes also works for getting public attention. Big eyes. The initial record of flight coordinated the start, but what about progress? June 17, 1919, Barney Google and Spark Plug debut. September 17, 1919, 17 geese observed at 58k feet. Cons of flying high, but they gave it an impossible height. Mount Everest is 29k. Just like the silly stories of women giving birth to dozens of babies a day, anyone today can understand that it would be literally impossible for any woman to give birth to 3 dozen children in one day. But hundreds of years ago the public bought it. A tightrope with plausibility in comms. Has to be impressive and beyond everyone else but not impossible. Fiji mermaid juxtaposed with dinosaurs is a good example. Both said to have been real, but only one still pretends as real. Nuclear and Oppenheimer. Nuclear bombs are probably the most important example given the recent Oppenheimer hype trend. I decode them here. Notice too, nuclear cover-ups by Russia happened the day before the mysterious deaths of confirmed blackmailers Epstein/Hefner. I learned today that they tried all sorts of oils to make nuclear bombs, but they found the only kind of oil that worked was sperm whale oil. My decode keeps getting more confirmed. Though the symbolism is a little more nuanced than blackmail. The symbol is at its most base form a massive boom. It ties into both the creation of it with fuel and execution of visibility with media control. The description of the event is describing the spreading of whatever story is at the core of the boom. That graphic I made above was also represented in that new Oppenheimer video that was top of trending today. Notice they described the event as raising something, the thickness of a piece of paper, countless times to build energy, i.e. newspapers. Nuclear, little boy, on the Enola Gay, was about using blackmail to remove political enemies in Congress. Same day of detonation the head of opposition to the president dies as earthquakes are heard in his home state. His side's opposition ending meant that the next bomb could be used. Fat Man was about the Soviets breaking their treaty and turning against Japan to invade Manchuria. This is why that news got equal or stronger billing than the nukes. The nukes gave Japan an excuse to surrender. Most of that I decoded years ago, but I refreshed the memory because I found some new connections today that clear things up even more. I already mentioned the sperm whale bit, but that's just the start. Keep in mind this was a video about Oppenheimer. Keep that Oppenheimer equals sperm plus whale connection in your mind. February 15, 1967. Oppenheimer coma death 3 days later. February 15, 1967. Famous whale Kandu captured Washington, USA. Big connection in clarity. But to understand it fully we have to go deeper. The whale and Oppenheimer. First the man. What did it mean to give Oppenheimer the lead over more qualified science people like Chadwick? Neutron discoverer. Note this famous confirmed true story about him trying to poison his tutor Blackett with a cyanide apple. What then does an apple mean? And what message is sent in poisoning one? Apple equals knowledge, temptation and sometimes sex. To eat an apple, in symbolism is to learn of something important previously unknown. Now reconcile this with nuclear bomb symbolism and the reason this story is part of his history becomes clear. Uranium nuclear bombs typically symbolize blackmail plus ability to communicate it with the media. A poisoned apple, therefore, can be defined as this preparation of wisdom to share. It's not meant to be used but as a threat. We can expose black, hidden, agent. A symbol of weaponizing stored blackmail against agents in meaningful positions. It's not poisonous to the audience, but it is poisonous to the one whom the message is directed. Do you want to eat it? Note his girlfriend at the time. Jean Frances Tatlock, daughter of Perry, Communist Party member. June 29, 1954. Oppenheimer security clearance revoked. June 30, 1954. Atomic Energy Act of 1954, changes access to nuclear secrets. Assume those communist accusations were true for now. It'll make the comms more clear momentarily. So the story of him tied to nuclear bombs begin with a half-finished haircut of Luis Alvarez. He rushes to Oppenheimer with the news of a nuclear discovery. January 29, 1939. Luis haircut newspaper nuclear discovery shown to Oppenheimer. January 30, 1939. Hitler threatened the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe in the event of war. January 30, 1939. Oppenheimer confirms nuclear experiments and recognizes how to harness the energy. Haircut symbolism is of string cutting. The symbol when reconciled with Hitler announcing future genocide. Cons of big news to mobilize partnerships. Soviet plus USA plus Britain equals. Soviet plus USA plus Britain equals Trinity bomb. First nuclear. In fact, the story is directly tied to the three meeting up. July 16, 1945, Trinity bomb. July 17, 1945, Potsdam Conference. I actually decoded it here. Now it's more clear. Media power x3. The combined media pull of plants in Russia, USA, and Britain. Not necessarily media in their respective countries, I mean media plants tied to the country inside each other's countries. Fragmented media control becomes one big voice. February 4, 1945, Big Three of World First meet at Yalta. February 3, 1945, Three Caballeros, Disney's seventh animated feature. The whale, therefore, was likely a symbol of this big unified water mover. After the US turned on Oppenheimer and captured the whale, it was soon then killed by a new whale, Corky, by destroying the mouth, voice. Corky, adopted, the new child of Candu. It begs the question of the symbol of Corky. December 11, 1969, Corky captured off British Columbia. Oldest captive whale. December 12, 1969, Michael Jackson, King of Pop, first album under Jackson 5. December 14, 1969, Jackson 5 first appearance on TV, I Want You Back. Given Michael Jackson dominated media after. February 1971, Watergate recording installed Oval Office. February 1971, Willard released, Rat horror film. June 23, 1972, Smoking gun tape, Nixon confession. June 23, 1972, Willard 2, Rat horror Ben with Michael Jackson's, You've Got a Friend in Me. Oppenheimer was a symbol of the partnership in media between the biggest parties in control of it. July 21, 2023, Oppenheimer Christopher Nolan. July 21, 2023, Pikmin 4. I noticed today these two were being discussed in articles as meaningful together. Takes over Times Square. Pikmin had a curious event where it let the public take over a mouthpiece reserved for megacorporations. Pikmin. Pikmen. Cons of who to pick for disclosure. This may just be my optimism, but I'd like to think it's time. Nuclear bombs are a symbol tied to potential mass exposure. At the very least the Pikmen is the correct symbol here. Associating the Pikmin with carrots gives a clue as carrot symbolism is tied to eyesight. Crashing on an unknown planet happens in each game. This is highly meaningful when reconciled with another data point. Investigating a foreign planet. October 26, 2001, Pikmin released. Picking carrots, vision, to fight monsters. October 26, 2001, Patriot Act rushed through allows spying on citizens to detect monsters. October 28, 2001, Monsters Incorporated spying on citizens plus plot of undercover investigation. I go over Monsters Incorporated here looks like Pikmin is most likely tied to it. Yep. A bit more research and the entire premise of the game was built around observing people. They changed it to make it more fun, but the original pitch gives it away. Additionally, the game they turned it into was inspired by MULE. One of the 5-pack games EA launched with in 1983. The logical reason to do that is to invoke the same symbol EA did back in '83. Packed alongside a game where you solve crimes as Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes in this post. Symbol of using then new phone tech to spy on citizens looking for crimes. Which means the 1983 variant would be the same, only tied to spying on the new proto-internet. So taking it all together, seems to be a symbol of getting secret info about criminal acts to court. None of the prior comms imply disclosure, but that new comm of Nintendo letting the public take over Times Square still could be. I'll go with my optimistic hope for now that disclosure is soon. I know it's being handled carefully. Unleashing a massive list of evils inflicted upon them on mainstream media and radio one day is probably not how it'll go. People are programmed to follow a shepherd, and whoever tells the story gains keys to potentially drive a mob. I'm reminded of the new Mission Impossible. A revolutionary new AI has the potential to shape morality for generations to come. AI has the task of sabotaging the submarine's stealth, symbol of exposing hidden agents. It's a poor argument to deny D-Class because people might make poor judgments with it. The very info they will gain will increase their ability to make judgments. Philosophy lessons can be packaged with mind blows, and it serves double duty to prepare them for the info. In my view, the right way is optimistic but still presenting the horrible things. Speaking of which, let's get back to the decodes. World War. In this post, I go into how comms coordinated the mass psychology necessary to begin World War II. Comms coordinated psychological campaigns to ferment outrage in Germany. Looting the riches from King Tut. Equals Germany forced at gunpoint to pay WW1 debt. Curse being awareness of German malice growing into war. Paired with new drugs increasing poor decisions of public. Comms also coordinated counter-outrage. Creating Wrath. January 24, 1940, Grapes of Wrath premiere. January 25, 1940, Guinness record highest hockey score. January 30, 1940, Holocaust date, one of many, Nazis' genocide of millions. Clearly he asserted hate on Jews and a future of genocide, but given comms intent to ferment outrage and wrath on public. It's not clear if 6 million was a product of psych campaigns or accurate. I begin at true until comms show otherwise. And of course how World War II began. January 10, 1920. Treaty of Versailles forces payment by Germans of 269 billion gold marks ends WW1 but sows seeds of World War II. January 10, 1920, Guinness record most hockey goals for both teams. Big number symbols. Changes depending on context. The big comms for major sports are established. Baseball on product moving, golf on money moving, hockey is focused on killers and MK. This is why it's tied to prior comms. April 28, 1908, Guinness record for most murder victims. Plus 17/Q. May 15, 1908, Ice Hockey Federation origin. But then there's a lot of ways to represent horrors in comms. May 18, 1980, Mount St. Helens eruption begins. May 18, 1980, South Korea massacre begins. The intel agency in Korea being the K Central Intelligence Agency. Founder, Kim Jong-pil, married to Young Ok. Pill/Pill. Died same day as child rescue operation began in Thailand. Either coincidence or possible symbol of moving victims of blackmail ops. Though that's just me spitballing. Try not to take my words too seriously until it's backed up with decoding. Preferably from multiple angles. May 22, 1945, Guinea's record highest death toll of any rail crash. 227 troops killed. May 22, 1915, volcano eruption of Lassen Peak. Typically the symbol will have enough winks to make it clear if it's right, but I move way too fast to verify all of them. July 2, 1973, Holiday Inn Center Strip Hotel opens massive casino. July 2, 1973, Match Game begins CBS, ranked 4th greatest game show of all time TV guide. Context is key. When I decoded the giant flying balloons, for example, one type represented a fall. But if they take a flyer balloon and crash and deflate every year? Who began winning that console race post-crash? Luckily, I have readers catching up. They will be able to vet comms and find some themselves. Dorsey. Here's an interesting find from one. Dorsey/Dorsey, both born November 19th. Invoking the original Dorsey comm? If so, I can decode the bandleader, and it may unlock more of Twitter. The most interesting story tied to Tommy Dorsey is this curious brawl between Tommy Dorsey and actor John Hall. It was parodied in Roman Polanski's Chinatown. Polanski was famous for what kinds of activities? Girls, dress ripping. Leaping pills mentioned. Fight involved breaking nose/nose, comm for someone losing their cover/being exposed potentially intentionally. Brother died of throat cancer right after Dorsey died. Stopping talk. Talks of need to get plastic surgery. Hide. Often when the point is to disguise the location of a positional move, Antarctica is used. June 10, 1829. Antarctica/Argentina decree creating political military command. June 10, 1829. Earliest university boat race record. May 4, 1948. Supreme Court case breakup of studio theater monopolies. May 5, 1948. Highest individual score record. I suspect a comm may have been an agreement with the decision. One person only scoring way too high. A message from powerful people, they agree it was a problem. But I'm still vetting a number of comms methods, so it's far from clear. I do think certain pushes created backlash with global money. May 8, 1949. House Un-American Committee investigates communists in Hollywood. May 9, 1947. World Bank Group approves first and still largest loan. March 13, 1948. Foreign Assistance Act of 1948, $13.3 billion in aid for variety of industry in Western Europe. March 13, 1948. Guinness record, most horse runners in one place, United Kingdom. Symbol of being able to fund tons of operations. I'm trying to solve new types of symbols using these records, so it requires a hypothesis. October 18, 1919. Record, world's tallest flagstaff erected after being shipped overseas. October 19, 1919. Green Bay Packers first on-road game, 6th game. A few reasons I think this might connect. The other, tallest flagstaff, record was at the exhibition for completing the Panama Canal. Good shipping, which is the exact origin of the Green Bay Packers. We already know they were sending comms for the revolution it brought. This may give us an origin point for NFL, even as the Packers were among the first to join. The symbol may be in the international roots, as the whole thing came into existence not long after the Panama Canal itself was opened. I haven't yet decoded Green Bay Packers as a whole yet, but their iconography of cheese head is interesting to reconcile with cheese as a symbol for being recorded on film. So it could be a comm of international lanes newly opened for trafficking cheese. When I looked into the first big win of Green Bay. December 15, 1929. Green Bay first of 3 in a row NFL championships. December 16, 1929. Mary Dwarf's Disney. Dwarf being a symbol tied to surveillance. 1929 theatrical short about little bearded ugly men that create shoes, job symbolism, for bugs, surveillance device symbol. Though it could be coincidence as a release date, but these are the kinds of hypotheses I make for the future as I can confirm/reject in later digs. June 30, 1896. Pigeon message carrying race earliest record. June 27, 1896. UFO torpedo crosses moon. June 17, 1986. Hudson Taylor missionary returned from China. Famous missionary bringing 800 people to set up networks in China. A foreign alien, acting on behalf of a foreign power. May 17, 1939. First TV sports announcer directing audience. May 1939. After 17 failures, record, first success in driving. Symbol of the success in driving audiences with a sports announcer. Prior attempts at showing TV games without announcer didn't keep them watching. July 7, 1947. Guinness record longest escape of alien/alien after 668 days. July 8, 1947. Roswell UFO flying disc famous date. September 18, 1947. CIA founded. Notice the other famous escape, Stanley Hilton. July 13, 1939. Record largest theater in UK opens. July 13, 1939. Frank Sinatra cuts his first record. Sinatra being the next big voice. Fly Me to the Moon and Send in the Clowns. July 4, 1776. AD Declaration of Independence USA. July 21, 77. 6 BC. First Olympics recorded. 21-17 is equal to 4. 17 equals secrecy, Olympics being a symbol of international cooperation. Cons of the international groups hiding behind independence. Barbenheimer. Continuing the Oppenheimer decode. A lot of reporting going on about excessive nudity and sex. A first for a Nolan film. I've speculated the nudity and sex of Blunt as Kitty Oppenheimer could represent exposure, but I need to see film for context. Another reported aspect of the film is the connection with AI dangers. The old nuclear threat of world ending equals modern AI threat of world ending. Pertinent given nukes can symbolize exposure and AI sentience is used to discuss mass awareness. The final major thing reported is the release time together with Barbie. Barbenheimer. This juxtaposition is not something people would naturally fixate on. It's a media push, and that tells me these two films must be decoded together to understand the point of either. The first obvious giveaway to the meaning is the choice of parody with 2001, A Space Odyssey. This is lucky as I already decoded the point of that one in this post. The importance, much like Barbie/Oppenheimer, was in juxtaposition of another film. Elon Musk, space flight. What is SpaceX? Why did Elon Musk become richest in the world? What is he doing with all that power? What power is it? Is it simply to shoot rockets into orbit? Or is there a lot more to it? March 27, 1968. Planet of the Apes, Astronauts and Monkeys. Plus 6 days. April 2, 1968. 2001 Space Odyssey, begins with monkeys then astronauts. The most famous thing about Planet of the Apes? The twist ending that it was Earth all along. Hoax symbol. Read linked post if you've only ever seen conspiracy nonsense on this. 150 miles equals 1961 Mercury shuttle launches. 205 miles equals 1998-2020 ISS orbit launches. 250 miles equals 1972-2011 the Space Shuttle orbit. 252,088 miles equals 1969 Apollo Saturn launches. Conspiracy nonsense being the various lies pushed trying to get you to look in the wrong direction. There is an easy way to prove things like this, all it takes is critical thinking, history, and percentages. Anyway, the symbol was for the creation of a massive lie. Reconciled with the new Barbie/Oppenheimer, the juxtaposition seems to be in the fantasy world relative to the real one. The story of fantasy world Barbie venturing to the real world. Ends becoming a handler and going to the gynecologist. I'm reminded of Rachel Chandler. 2009, Rachel Chandler is tied to Maxwell and note her habit of tattooing her lip with truffle. 2009, Prince Philip's truffle trees black diamonds not giving birth. It would fit with the real world in revealing the horrors of what people do to children treated as dolls. I'm projecting my own hopes for disclosure, but really though it would perfectly fit a nuclear symbol. The precise kind of blackmail keeping powerful people in check. Explains the necessity of having so many recent deaths as well. February 22, 2021. Prince Philip fake obituary. February 24, 2021. Statue of Queen Elizabeth beheaded, head has not been recovered. April 9, 2021. Prince Philip death. Jeffrey Epstein, dies at age 66, 6 months. Prince Philip, dies at age 99, 9 months. Curious music choice in trailer. Ends with opening of Barbie World. Lyrics. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere. You can touch, you can play. I can act like a star, I can beg on my knees. Make me talk, do whatever you please. I assume it won't be in the film. It's not exactly a child-friendly song, I think. A famous song though, with what is it called? Earworm appeal? Interesting history. Mattel sued them for turning Barbie into a sex object. For them to now invoke it? I feel like I must have gotten something wrong somewhere, as it is absurd to include even just the intro to a song like this. Is there another Barbie song that has that same opening as the sex object song? Seems unlikely, and they don't mention the song at all because technically I guess they aren't playing it. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm getting this wrong. A Barbie expert I am not. Original one paired with Lollipop. A trending Oppenheimer promo has Robert Downey Jr. and Christopher Nolan singing the song Russians together. How Can I Save My Little Boy, from Oppenheimer's Deadly Toy. Behind Nuclear Hysteria. This is an interesting string to pull with comms awareness. This song was from the first solo album by Sting. Played February 1986 at the Grammys. Just before Chernobyl. Note the backstory of the song. Tied to Sesame Street. Open Sesame, symbolism for access to data. The real clue though is digging into the Police history. So this was Sting's debut solo album. The Police began in 1977. February 12, 1977. Celebrity sex diary stolen as Krista Helms stabbed on sidewalk, killer not identified. February 12, 1977. Police begins to record debut album. Father and manager of the Police was literally ex-CIA and claimed he set up his own private police force. I'll Be Watching You lyrics. Began 1977 and ended 1986. Sounds familiar. Studio 54 Sex Dungeon / Chernobyl and others. Note the first single on that album. If You Love Somebody Set Them Free. Reconcile with Data Ops and Berlin Wall. The Police, as a band in 1977 and solo in 1986, juxtaposes the changes with Russia. Judge Dredd Robocop equals 19771987. Police final gig in 1986 as they passed the torch to U2. Debut album described as pedophilic. May 1, 1960. U2 incident begins with Gary Powers shot down by USSR. May 10, 1960. Bono of U2 born. May 10, 1960. Soviet Communications Gary Powers. September 25, 1976. U2 formed at 14 years old. The U2/U2 connection. Gary Powers, famous for surveillance mission of the Soviet Union. Died in a surveillance helicopter the same week as the MK Ultra hearing and the beginning of Q clearance. August 1, 1977. Gary Powers spy death helicopter crash. August 3, 1977. MK Ultra hearing. Here's an interesting clue that reinforces everything I've talked about nuclear comms. Epstein's New Mexico Zorro Ranch was likely chosen for its proximity to the Trinity nuclear site, where Oppenheimer detonated the first nuke code named Gadget. Gadget? September 7, 1983. McMartin preschool scandal, first arrest. September 12, 1983. Inspector Gadget. Note that he's upside down when he's introduced, as well as in the title card. Flipped, and then he travels through tunnels just like McMartin tunnels. Climax of opening is not in arresting the bad guy but in failing to do so and being blown up. The entire premise is built on an incompetent police investigator. This was likely meant to calm down involved parties that everything was taken care of. It being 1983 likely ties into why the data changes of 1986 happened. Adding an extra layer of protection by adding a foreign firewall of sorts. That the activities would continue, just with more secure string attachments. So to speak. Note in the film, Indictment, the McMartin trial, the boy from E.T. plays the starring child role. In E.T. he talks about E.T. being nude and how cool he thinks that is. He becomes telepathically drunk and driven to kiss a child in a way shows denotes sexual gratification. The very logo of E.T. plays off the nude angle. Note the parody of Pope commissioned Spark of Man. Newly created nude man gaining the divine spark. Which implies getting rewarded with profit by participating in the system. Atari Nintendo. September 27, 1986. Sister of Maxwell, Epstein, article about company that can find anything with computer database company. September 27, 1986. Nintendo USA wide release date. Maxwell talks about getting data from Russia. This was as Robert Maxwell was competing with Nintendo for Tetris. This database connection goes further as the Maxwell family developed the database for the FBI. Even before that, several of her companies were involved in Library of Congress meetings as data search specialists. Strings behind Maxwell. I've heard CIA and Mossad frequently. Maxwell explicitly invoked CIA in reference to Epstein's death. But does that define both or just Epstein? Does their relationship itself matter? Perhaps a partnership between. December 30, 1993. Holy See and Israel signed agreements to begin diplomatic relations. December 31, 1993. Brady, Evidence Com, marries Diana Lasso, obtaining Com. January 1, 1994. Bill Gates, Tech Data, marries Melinda. This is just as Epstein/Maxwell got set up. February 22, 1993. Jeffrey Epstein/Maxwell obtains Zorro Ranch from King. February 22, 1993. Jeffrey Sinclair, Babylon 5 debut. Setup of Alien Diplomacy Station. Neutral territory between 5 major empires. June 15, 1994. Holy See and Israel establish full diplomatic relations. June 15, 1994. Lion King released. New authority. The titular Lion King played by Home Improvement's Jonathan Taylor Thomas. September 17, 1991. Home Improvement debut installing security lock. September 17, 1991. Linux first released new computer security. He was also a Brady. Symbol of the next-gen surveillance. Secure data ops. I've noticed comms asserting various ops as investigations. I'm trying to ascertain which country was tied to what and how separate the players themselves were from intel agencies. Trying to solve if any is legit, or just a cloak for darker things. I spent the day researching overthrows to broaden my perspective. March 12, 1949. Truman Doctrine announced equals Foreign Policy Declaration. Plus 17Q. March 29, 1949. CIA overthrows Syria with Miles Copeland, police manager. The first explicit CIA regime change. The next overthrow being Egypt. Notice this one was headed by the son of Teddy Roosevelt. Kermit, Kim, Roosevelt. Possibly giving us the symbol of Kim, MK mirror, at NK and Kermit as a puppet. They took down the Muhammad Ali dynasty. This may give us the symbol for Muhammad Ali. As in taking down a regime. Or more generalized as taking down an established power. March 6, 1964. Cassius Clay becomes Muhammad Ali. JFK fired Alien Dulles, and after assassination perhaps the CIA was re-establishing itself. Divorcing the former U.S. chain of command in favor of an international one. The Cold War/Potsdam Partnership. The Cold War itself equals excuse for both sides to keep spending big post-World War II. Soviet threat as an excuse to take over countries. Updates. Okay, a bit of a quick ending, but this post is packed. I put off turning this thread into a post as I was more excited to share the other work I had been doing. Which is to say, I don't think this post is as good as my last couple or my next one, but it still has a lot of new and good decoding. It's not as surprising as the other big new posts I made, but it's a good building block. Likely I'll go through more record books in the future. Telegram chat. Join the Decoding Telegram group. See. This has been 1955 World Records Book 5:5.